Hello, my name is Hakon and welcome back to my channel and another little tutorial on the Empress effects Zoia, the modular patchable digital synthesizer in a little box with the unique grid interface and where the only limitation is your imagination and the CPU, of course. Indeed, in today's patch, as you can see, the CPU usage is a 1.1%, which is very low, which is good. Low CPU means room for more other things, and you can use this Zoia for so many things at once. It's nice to have the option. So what is today's patch? Well, I was thinking earlier today, I was going for a walk and I was thinking how in the past I have demonstrated how to create radio buttons. So radio buttons is where you have a set of buttons where you can only select one of the set at a time. And of course, different ways to use the radio buttons to control other things and also to get the visual feedback of the button that is active lighting up. Those things I have covered before. But what if you need more user interface for your Zoia patch on a single page? You can easily imagine that if you make a user interface page on the Zoia, you want to cram as much control as possible into one page. So you may have different value modules, you have different buttons that select things, and you want to have as many of them on a single page as possible. You may not have the luxury of having radio buttons for every single function that needs to be selected. So I was thinking, what is the other viable option? And that is to make a multi-button, as I call it. Basically, if you think of it in terms of what you can find on other kinds of electronics, you have switches that don't just have two positions, but they may have three positions or even four positions. And if you have rotary switches, they can have sometimes as many as 10 positions with click stops, for instance. So I was thinking along those lines and thinking, how do I make that in a very compact way on the Zoia? So I came up with this simple design. I have here a UI button that when I press it, cycles through three different stages. So it's blue now. I press it, it turns red. I press it, it turns green. I press it, it turns blue again. So this is a switch with three discrete positions that can control three different things, make three different connections, do any different thing you want a single switch to do on the Zoia. And best of all, it takes up a single pad on your user interface page. Instead of, if this had been radio buttons, it would have taken up three spaces. So it's a very simple construction. It uses the module known as the UI button. And when you set up this UI button, it is important if I go into edit now, I'll show you that you have the CV output option set to enabled. It is by default disabled. So you want to set it to enabled. That allows the UI button, when it is pushed, you can see the pad next to it lighting up. That means that pad is sending out a value of 1. Okay, so in order for this to have three different positions, the easiest way to do it is to send that value of 1 into a sequencer. So as you can see, it's patched up to a sequencer gate input, and this sequencer has 3 steps. So it's a step sequencer, 3 steps, gate input from the UI button output, and it is set to CV. So I'll just do like that. Let's see. So CV output is what this sequencer is set to. So every time I push this button, the sequencer advances a single step, like so. And I'm using this sequencer to control a switch. So this is an out switch. An out switch means that it takes a single input and then it has a channel selector. And based on the value that is sent to the channel selector, or that is set on the channel selector itself, the value at the input is sent to one and only one of the outputs. And in this case, I've got 3 outputs. And the way this channel selector works is it takes the value of the CV range, the control value range of the Zoia, from 0 to 1 and divides that range equally among the number of channels. In this case, I have 3 channels, which means when the channel selector gets an input of between 0 and 0.33, it will select channel 1. If it is between 0.333 and 0.6666, it will select channel 2. And finally, from 0.6666 until 1, it will select channel 3. So in order for the sequencer to select these 3 different channels, the output of the sequencer is sent to the channel selector on the out switch, and the steps on the sequencer are set to just below 0.3333, just below 0.6666, and 1. And the reason I'm using, it doesn't have to be those specific numbers, but by setting those numbers at the top of the range, I get more visual feedback from the Zoia. So the things light up brighter when the values are higher. So I think that looks nice. So, which means every time it advances a step here, it goes to a different channel on the switch. And we can see that here too. As we push this, it cycles through these 3 channels on the switch. And the active channel gets the output value that is the same as the input value, which is just set to a value of 1. Very often when you have a switch, you are trying to use it to control something else. It's quite common then to have the value be 1, and that is the one that is sent into the rest of the patch to control something. So this is also, the switch is also controlling the color of the UI button, so you can see which channel is active. So now we have channel 1, you can see it is red. Channel 2 here, it is green, and channel 3, it is blue. The way a UI button gets its color is by adding a certain value to this pad on the UI button. And there is a table in the Zoia module index that tells you the different values. And if you look at the table, you will know that red has a maximum brightness when it is set to 0.0375. And as you can see here, it has a value of 0.0375. And that is because the value of 1 from the UI button is patched to the, no, sorry, the value of 1 from the switch is patched to the UI button with a connection strength of 3.749. And that means that the value of 1 that comes from the input of the switch is turned into 0.03749 at the UI button and produces a color green. And when I push this again, you get, let's see, that's the second one. The color green is the second one, and that is a value of 0.2875. So again, the connection strength, 28.74%. And finally, the connection strength from the last pad is 48.69 because the code, or the value rather, I should say, for blue is 0.4875. That is the sort of maximum brightness blue. So that means that now the switch both can send out a value of 1 to 3 different places, and also it sends the value to the UI button that started it all to indicate which of the channels is active. And then you can take these values from this switch and send them out into the world of Zoia and do whatever you want with those. They could start a sequencer, they could control the pitch of an oscillator, they can do whatever you like. These are values of 1, you can use them to control something on the Zoia. So that's just a useful way to create a single button on the Zoia that has a visual feedback of which state it is in. And of course, it is feasible to use a few more steps, but once you get a lot of steps here, it's not ideal necessarily anymore to have this kind of system because you have to scroll your way through all of the options, but you can do it really quickly. So yeah, so that is how it is done. And that is all I wanted to show you today. Nothing fancy, but it's a very useful little thing. And it may be something you can use in your own patches if you are making a user interface, which you should when you make patches. It makes it easier for you. And of course, if you upload to patch storage, it makes it easier for others to use your patch. So you make a user interface page and you make descriptions of what things do. And also preferably one should maybe include a little document as well to describe what's going on. I know I should be doing that when I make my patches. Anyway, so 3-pole on switch that does 3 different things. That can be whatever you like. So if you enjoyed this little tutorial, which I hope you did, please like, share, comment, subscribe, join me on Patreon, buy me a coffee on buymeacoffee.com, add this video to public playlists, click on adverts, or just watch it and enjoy it, and that is fine too. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye for now. Bye-bye.